We've got a score to settle with that son of a bitch.
Devil May Cry.
What's up guys, my name is RBG and we are back with more coverage on Devil May Cry 5. We have been wringing the E3 2018 trailer dry of all the possible theories we could come up with, and we've also had some potential leaks from sites like 4chan that almost sound legit, but we simply had to wait and see if it was true. But as of yesterday, we finally got a new trailer along with 15 minutes of extensive gameplay footage at this year's Gamescom. So there's a lot to go over. But before we get into that, I want to remind you guys that I'm giving away a mouse. Since you guys have supported this channel, I've linked up with Mallknow to give you their brand new gaming mouse. It features a high FPS rate, 7 different switches such as the back and forward button, an adjustable DPI, micro switches backed by LED lights, and much more. The shipping and handling averages around $5 depending on your location. The link will be in the description box below, so make sure you jump on that while the offer lasts. But getting back onto the topic at hand, we've been dying to get some more info in regards to the overall controls, the new stylish rating system, and the actual heads-up display for Devil May Cry 5. And we pretty much got that, except it kind of varies, because we didn't necessarily have a top-tier DMC player to demonstrate all the ins and outs that the demo has to offer. Which I gotta admit, I'm a little bummed because the devs had already stripped most of the mechanics away and reserved them for an interview. But I think we got enough to get a good idea of how it will play with all the new functions. First off, I gotta talk about how beautiful the game looks in motion. Like, we've been hearing that Itsuno and Camp have been hellbent on pushing the RE engine to the very brink of its limits. Everything from the dynamic lighting to the different gritty textures adds so much to this game. Not to mention that it's locked at a buttery smooth 60 frames per second. Capcom seems to be spearheading all of their more serious projects like the Resident Evil 2 remake with this new graphics engine. And since we're on the topic of RE2 and the RE engine, someone from Reddit did some digging and noticed that some of the same assets from DMC5 are being used in RE2's remake. If you look closely, you can spot this particular book in both of the trailers. I'm not sure if that solidifies that DMC and Resident Evil are in fact in the same universe, but it's cool seeing the cross references. But rambling aside, let's talk about the gameplay, because there's something about it that seems different yet familiar. Like, you can tell that most of the moves and abilities have been transferred over from DMC4, but they look like they've been heavily modified and tweaked with additional animations. If I recall, in an interview given by Famitsu, the devs said that the main focus would be on the realism, saying that things like motion skipping would be toned down to avoid hampering the realistic movements. I'm pretty sure that a lot of the more advanced players were concerned about this news because they might be worried how jump resets would be handled, because they're basically the core for all the aerial combos. But in my honest opinion, it just looks like creative liberties were taken to find a balance between natural and unnatural movements. The developers just don't want it to be this crazy uncanny valley of action. But as you can see, the overall control layout for Nero's moveset remains unaltered. You still perform all of your sword slash and melee attacks with the Y button, and the blue rose attack with the X button, and substituting the Devil Bringer, we now have the Devil Breaker with the B button. What's more interesting about Nero's playstyle this time around is that the Devil Breaker system seems to be more intuitive than the Devil Bringer. Instead of having one arm that specializes in things like context sensitive grapples, you now have multiple arms that can be switched out on the fly to spruce up your combos. This was a smart move on the developer's part because there was only so much you could do with Nero's Devil Bringer in DMC4. I mean, of course you could say that you could use the Devil Trigger to gain more advanced grabs on enemies, but that was about it. I'm guessing this new gimmick of switching out arms will play similar to Dante from part 4, where he has 4 different styles, or in Nero's case 4 different mechanical arms that can be switched out on the fly. In the demo, the player had access to 2 types of Devil Breakers, one being the Overture, which specializes in electrical blast or shock waves, and the Gerbera, which will grant you aerial agility and moves like the Shockwave Air Dash. And holy Hitomi Tanakers are these things going to be effective. One thing that you'll notice is that you won't be able to spam attacks from each arm. For each specific arm in your arsenal, you'll only be allowed a maximum of 4 replacements, and each arm will feature a normal attack and a special attack called Break Age, which will allow the player to perform a super move by holding down the action button. The only drawback is the fact that if you get hit while performing these moves, your arm will break, or if you use your remaining energy on a super attack. For example, Nero performs this badass move called the Statement Ray, where he says, "Give him a little taste of the good shit," and proceeds to let off this huge Kamehameha wave and the arm explodes into pieces. Thankfully, your weapons mechanic Nicolette will drop spares throughout each level, and you can purchase them via her shop that's inside the DMC van. Instead of using the signature gold lion-headed statue to upgrade skills and purchase weapons, you can use these random phone booths to call Nico and summon her to your location. So that's definitely something that I think players will appreciate. actually choosing your next move wisely. Like, I can see the statement ray being used as an ender to a long stream of combos or to simply scrape an assembly line of demons. And the idea of calling Nico to your location as opposed to finding another statue is nothing short of genius.
Hey honey, need assistance?
I could talk about the arms all day, but what I really want to harp on are the returning weapons, such as Nero's Red Queen and Blue Rose. Because as I've mentioned, there are a ton of assets that have been brought over, but there are just as many new ones that I'm excited about. There's such a heavy emphasis on Nero's overall style, and I think that was deliberate for the most part, because this is a game that takes place several years after DMC4, and I can imagine that Nero's enthusiasm along with his skills have skyrocketed through the roof.
Hey, do you do parties?
Moves like his roulette spin have been given more swag, and his succeed system has extra kick to it. One thing I've noticed is how they've added a more stylish animation when you crank up your sword in mid-air. Instead of having this stiff hover animation when you use Exceed, Nero will instead place his feet on the Red Queen, performing what looks to be like a skate or snowboarding trick, which is tight. It looks so smooth and seamless. Not to mention that the Red Queen looks more mechanical than ever. I'm not sure if this is the same Red Queen from part 4 or a new one altogether, because if I'm not mistaken, it's already been established in the manga that the Red Queen melted when Nero got absorbed into the Savior along with his Blue Rose pistol. And I think that was a pretty smart story element to add because the weapons weren't exactly supernatural like the Rebellion or the Yamato. I mention these things because Itsuno confirmed that some of the DMC4 manga concepts were adapted into this game. But then again, certain elements don't necessarily add up, like Nero using the Red Queen and Blue Rose at the end of Devil May Cry 4 the video game. If they were in fact destroyed, I could imagine that Nero had the old blueprints laying around and he probably got Nicolette to remake them with upgrades. I'm just saying. In regards to the Blue Rose, it looks to have undergone a redesign as well, and it also has some newer stylish animations. You still have the charge shot and that 1 second delay bullet that follows after the top barrel, but there's also more impact behind the blast. And there's this awesome animation where he uses the compulsion of a blast to launch him in the air. Like, I'm not sure if that's actually the Blue Rose or the Devil Breaker, but I hope to God it's the latter. Now to get onto the actual UI, the user interface, because this is where I think there's a divide in the fandom. There are some like myself who love how everything from the heads-up display looks, and there are those who think the HUD design looks intrusive. I think it looks fine, but I can understand if some of the fans don't like the cracks of glass on the edge of the screen. Devil May Cry has always for the most part had a somewhat streamlined design for its health bar and other UI components, and this title looks like it's trying to go for a more edgier approach. Speaking of edgy, I know I'm not the only one who's noticed that Devil May Cry 5 has dared to borrow some of the controversial underpinnings of the notorious DMC reboot. Yes, the game that everybody loves to hate seems to have snuck from under the crevices to inspire Hideki Isono. One of the main things I've noticed is the exquisite production value and styles meter. Unlike its predecessors, which strictly relied on the visuals to gold players to pick up the slack on combos, DMC5 takes the reboot's approach by incorporating an over-animated announcer and a chorus that continues to dial up as your rankings do. Try to refute it all you want, but it's obvious Itsuno had to take some of the red-headed stepchild's cues when you hear a random announcer yell out sadistic when you achieve an S rank. And I have no problem with that. I mean, Itsuno was one of the main ones from the original Devil May Cry 3 team who oversaw the reboot's development, so it's totally understandable if he'd want to take elements that worked for it. If I recall, a similar approach was made when he took some of the elements from DMC2 like the aiming that would later become Gunslinger and the Rebellion sword that would become Dante's main weapon in all of the later entries. Speaking of Dante, I know you guys want me to talk about that awesome trailer. I mean, what is there not to say that hasn't already been said? I mentioned how the combat for Nero has returned with some new tricks, a couple of them being able to manipulate time similar to Quicksilver from Devil May Cry 3, except this version of the move seems to be more potent than the one we saw in the E3 trailer. And we have Nero absurdly riding on his rocket fist, making Hideo Kojima ask himself, why the hell didn't I think of that? If anything, this game further proves my point when I say that Nero's one of the biggest wrestling marks ever. Not even halfway into the trailer and he's putting Kevin Nash to shame with a powerbomb on lesser demons. Everything just seems fine-tuned, not to mention the fact that lackeys from previous entries are making their return. You have the Hell Pride from DMC3 who are now called the Hell Kana, who are looking to piss you off with their annoying blocking. And it looks like DMC1's Sin Scissor is back, which I'm not looking forward to since he was annoying as hell. As for the main boss battle, it pretty much answers some of the questions I had about the demo, like why the hell the player didn't try to perform any contextual grabs when he was stunned. I'm not gonna lie, I was puzzled because it was one of the main things any DMC player would do. To my surprise, Capcom opted to save the rest of the features for their demonstration, which is kind of a bummer because I'm pretty sure a lot of fans really wanted to cut loose in the demo. But minor ranting aside, Nero can be seen pummeling the hell out of a giant behemoth with his special Devil Breaker grapple. And to make matters even better, you can see him swinging the demon into a tower that collapses on impact. I absolutely love how there's no limit to how the environment can be destroyed. I specifically like how some of the destruction involves level transitions. It's one of those things that will keep us on the edge of our seats. As for our beloved Dante, there isn't much to talk about in the gameplay department with the exception of the brief shot we got of him using his motorcycle devil arm, which I have to take time to say I called it. Like anyone with a brain knew it was going to be some form of a weapon. I mean, it's not like we haven't seen a suitcase that transforms into a vehicle that's fully decked out with missile launchers. But I will say that I was not expecting Dante to split the freaking bike in two and proceed to use them as buzzsaws. If anything, I hope it features moves similar to that insane moment where he used Lady's motorcycle as a nunchuck in part 3. Anyways, I wish I could say more, but we'll have to wait till Tokyo Game Show to get more footage on him. I know there's some questionable pictures floating around where it has Dante wielding what looks to be like Sparta's sword. And if you take a look at this shot of Dante, you'll notice that he has a big sword on his back that is too big to be the rebellion. I'm just saying. But with that, I'd like to end this video. I want to hear your thoughts. Are you just as impressed as I am with the new gameplay? And are you liking the new ranking system that's heavily inspired by DMC? Let me know in the comment section below. As always, I ask that you like or dislike the video. It doesn't have to be a thumbs up, it can be a thumbs down. Any feedback is good feedback and will only help me improve on future content. But if you really enjoyed the video, it would help me out tremendously if you shared it on social media outlets with all your friends and followers. And if you want to support the channel directly, consider donating to my Patreon for as little as $1 a month. But anyways, with that, this is your boy RBG signing out on another video. I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.